was the iconic car of the 1960s and the 1970s? E-Type Jaguar? Mini? Aston Martin? I'm afraid it's none of those. And you may be surprised in an upmarket show like this what it is. It's a Ford Cortina. Wish I had a grey Cortina, whiplash aerial racing trim. Cortina owner, no one meaner. Wish I could be like him. Never cop a parking ticket, never seems to show its age. Speed police too slow to nick it. Grey Cortina got it made. Band sang that, it seemed to encapsulate the sort of the excitement of the Ford Cortina, which is rather interesting because it seemed to capture excitement, but at the same time as proletarian, and that's why it appealed to lots and lots of people. Now, I was driving up to Nottingham first of all in a Renault 16 once a week on Fridays usually. And then after that, an even fruitier BMW 2002, red one. And when I got there, I felt a bit uncomfortable, especially on Friday evenings when about 6 o'clock, one of the salesmen would come to me and say, or the managing director would say, look, the watch, you say, son's over the yard arm in half an hour, Vaughan, are you going down to the Pelican? And of course we went down to the Pelican, and there was a car park full of Cortinas, and you could tell what the pecking order was because they had all different sorts of trim levels and things like that, you see. And but in the pub was the embarrassing part, because somebody come up to you, maybe not from another company, would come up, because lots of salesmen and people going in the pub after, you know, for a pint at the end of the week, and it's very jolly company, and they say, excuse me, is that your Beamer over there? I said, yeah. Nice. How much do you pay for that then? I said, well, it's all right for some, isn't it? And with this little company, I felt a bit uncomfortable with this. You know, here's a person coming up from London, driving up, you know, dressed in a suit, but really an artist, masquerading as a businessman, and driving up in a fancy car, and not really one of the boys. Certainly not the girls, there weren't very few girls around. But I felt uncomfortable about it. And then a little bit later on, Greg, our sales manager, I had a conversation with him about we're bringing in an assistant sales manager, you see. And he said, what cars are you going to have, Vaughan? I said, well, you can have your, because Greg had a Cortina L, it was called. And I said, well, you can have your car, and then we get another one for you, a new one for you. And he says, yeah, but it won't be an L, will it? I said, well, why not? It'll have to be a GL. I said, why is a GL? He said, well, he says, you know, if I come in as the sales manager and he's the assistant, you know, it doesn't speak too well. In fact, what you could do is make him the sales manager and make me the general sales manager, and I could have the GL. So anyway, I went to my mother that night, who owned the company then, and I said this to her. I said, what do you think of that? Greg wants this. She says, I don't see why I should have that. I mean, come on, what does he say he wants to be? I said, he'd like to be called the general sales manager. I don't care if he calls himself the bloody field marshal sales manager. He's not having any more money, and he's not having a better car. Anyway, I'm afraid Greg parted company with the company soon after that and found another company where he could get a GL. What the cars had, these cars, Ford were very clever. They didn't really have to tell anybody what in the business world what the levels of car were, because the market they were aiming at with this car for new ones was the company car market. And the reason company cars were really the big thing in the 70s because they weren't taxed as they are nowadays, is that there was huge hyperinflation in the 1970s, and so people wanted more wages more or less every other week because the cost of living was going up all the time, and the government tried to put a cap on this by limiting pay rises. They put a block on pay rises, and the way around that was twofold. One was to change people's titles, so assistant sales manager became sales manager, and then the sales manager became the general sales manager, and so on. You see, not up to field marshal, but anyway, that's what they did. And but the other big thing that you had to increase somebody's salary by was to give them a company car, and that's what we had to do. And so the company car was the market for Ford, and they worked at all the different gradations, right from the ordinary one, the bog standard it's called, and the L and the XL and the GL, right up to something called the Gaia, which was supposed to be designed by the Italian design company, but it looked exactly the same from the outside. But it was the badge on the back that was the important thing. You had to have the right badge. Wish I had a grey Cortina, whiplash aerial racing trim, Cortina owner, no one meaner. Wish I could be like him. Well, I decided that I had to go and be like him and get a Cortina myself, and we ended up with 3 in the company, and I went for the estate car version, not all L's actually, or I think we've lowered that. And here's mine, but actually this one's brown, but mine was light blue. We did have a grey one, like that, you see. But the great thing about these cars, I thought they're lovely, and I have a weak spot, a very soft spot for Fords, because they were solidly engineered, not unpretentiously engineered. They were fast on the motorway, they were good motorway sloggers. They weren't sophisticated engines. A Ford engine didn't sound anything like a BMW, but they got you there. And they were cheap to repair. And I don't know, they had a sort of like a mixture of, I don't know, sort of like a, how shall I put it, without sounding snobbish, a sort of proletarian sexiness to them. And even when they were sold on from company cars right down the line, they were sought after cars by everybody. Most people, to have a Cortina was, you know, a bit of a head turner. Wish I had a grey Cortina, whiplash aerial racing trim, Cortina owner, no one meaner. Wish I could be like him, twin exhaust and rusty bumper, chewing gum at the traffic light, stop at red but leave on amber, grey Cortina out of sight. Speed police too slow to nick it, grey Cortina got it made. Wish I had a grey Cortina, whiplash aerial racing trim, Cortina owner, no one meaner. Wish that I could be like him. What was it that the Cortina had in a nutshell? Well, I think what it provided was exhilaration, but at a low price.